My favorite genre to read is fantasy, but what about my favorite genre to watch? Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, where we're not talking about reads, we're talking about TV shows, specifically my favorite TV shows. But before we get into that, please do me a favor, like this video and subscribe to the channel, as it does help the channel grow. And you can check the description box down below for links to all of my social media, including the Patreon/book club and the Discord server if you want to join a great bookish community. With that out of the way, this is just something that's been kind of bouncing around in my head. I don't usually deviate away from the books, but I kind of wanted to do this one, doing something a little fresh, because specifically, as I stated in the intro, you would think that my favorite TV shows would be fantasy. They're not. They're not even close to being my favorites. 90% of my favorite TV shows are like action-adventure and or sci-fi, with one significant outlier, which we'll touch on. I'm going to do my top 10 favorite TV shows that I could think of. I'm sure I might have missed something. The ground rule is no animation, but they can be the same universe, because, frankly, it's my list and I'll do what I want. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to let me know in the comment section down below your favorite TV shows so that we can then share interests. Wouldn't that be awesome? Now, with all of this out of the way, let's jump on right onto the list with the one TV show that is not sci-fi or fantasy, and that is MASH. MASH is just comedy genius. I grew up watching MASH with my mother. A lot of my favorite TV shows are going to be tied to memories of my mom, who I lost when I was about 22. And so, I just like to reminisce, and I like to watch these shows because they remind me of her. MASH is one of these shows. Obviously, I was not alive when MASH was on air, but just with Alan Alda and Jamie Farr and all of the comedic genius that happens on that television show, just gorgeous. And then you inject all that heart in these doctors just absolutely doing their best, performing meatball surgery. I have the Martinis and Medicine collection on DVD. And there were a number of years where I would literally just put MASH on repeat, and I would fall asleep to MASH. And in fact, I do that with a lot of my favorite TV shows, just because it's like, you get that kind of comforting feeling for when, you're watching your favorite show. So MASH is definitely one of those for me. I've probably watched the whole thing, at least the first 5 seasons, because I don't always make it all the way through a rewatch, but I've rewatched the first 5 seasons probably 6 or 7 times. I just absolutely love that TV show, and it's just hilarious as well. The rest is going to be like adventure, monster of the week, or sci-fi. And specifically, we're going to do, let's do some sci-fi. Let's do some sci-fi. And of course, I was actually wearing the shirt yesterday. I'm not wearing it today. Missed opportunity. Anyway, Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis. These are just two of the most formative sci-fi shows that I watched growing up, because I think SG-1 came on in the 90s. And so just going with Daniel Jackson and Colonel O'Neill and Samantha Carter and Teal'c going on these adventures. Oh, fantastic. I'm not as into Atlantis, but I've watched Atlantis 2 or 3 times. But I just love Stargate. I never watched Stargate Universe, but there's just something special about Stargate. It's this kind of monster of the week with some through lines. Let me tell you what, that show mastered its formatting, and with just all of the changes that happened to the cast are handled incredibly well. There's the shakeup in season 5, and you get introduced to these new characters, and while initially you're I don't like that, you come to fall in love with those characters, and then I don't want to start talking specifics, but that blending of Egyptian sci-fi with the pyramids being portals and aliens and stuff like that, very cool. I also love the movie. The one thing I don't particularly like is there are certain aspects to the pilot of Stargate, because that one was done on Starz, and I think it was Starz, and there is nudity in the pilot, which then does not appear in the rest of the series. And I'm I wish the pilot hadn't had that nudity in it, because the rest of the series is so good without it. And so that's my one Stargate gripe. But Atlantis, also very good. It's just this perfect mid-season launch into Atlantis, and you get this great cast of characters for at least the first, I think, 3 seasons. And then the 4th and the 5th season are kind of weak, in my opinion, but just really, really, really solid television. And then I'm going to do a shared universe next. We've got Eureka and Warehouse 13. These were on the Sci-Fi show. Basically, Eureka was, I think it was like an early to mid 2000s show. And we've got this U.S. Marshal who rolls into this town on accident while picking up his delinquent daughter, who he's constantly having to track down because she keeps getting into mischief because their marriage fell apart and she's rebelling. And they basically break down in this town. Mysterious stuff starts happening. Finds out he's in like this deep think town that is basically responsible for all of the inventions in like the last 100 years. And like the technology is just out of this world. Everybody's a genius, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And then in the same world, you've got Warehouse 13, which is similar to another show that's on this list. And essentially, Warehouse 13 is there's these artifacts throughout the world, and this group of individuals go out and hunt these artifacts. And essentially, what they're doing is they're bringing them back to the warehouse because the general public is just, it can't handle having these out in the public because they're just too dangerous. They become magical talismans and they give people powers, and it's always bad. And that ties in beautifully to my love with The Librarians, which is I think a TNT show. In the same similar vein, except the library instead of the warehouse. And like the librarian is doing the exact same thing that the agents are. I believe like in Warehouse 13, they're like Secret Service agents. And then like in the librarians, they're just incredibly smart people who are thrown into these situations with no training and just expected to survive with, they've got like a guardian, but like it started out as a trilogy of movies back in, I believe, the early 2000s. And I used to watch those with my mom. And then there was the TV show from 2014 to 2018, and now there's a new spin-off show that's happening in 2025, which is kind of the reason for this whole video, because I'm currently rewatching the TV show from 2014 to 2018, and I'm loving it. I love the librarians, I love the library, I love the whole concept. It's fantastic. And then I've got two more, well, technically I've got four more, okay? But we're going to talk about these two first, because I love them, but I don't know if I'd list them as favorites, because I haven't watched them in a long time. Specifically, one is hard to watch because of aspect ratios, and I don't know why this is the case, but it's just aspect ratios changed, and then this became harder to watch for me. And that is Farscape. Farscape is John Crichton. He's basically this astronaut pilot. He gets sucked into a wormhole and flung out deep into space, and basically this is like a Jimi Hendrix type of deal, sci-fi with like a living spaceship, and it's just fascinating going on these adventures with John Crichton and the crew that he finds himself surrounded with. Basically, he lands on an enslaved prison ship, and he frees the prisoners. The ship is living, and they start kind of running away from this empire, and it's just fantastic. There's something like good love story, a lot of sci-fi in there, a lot of friendship, a lot of redeeming, and it's just really great seeing John integrate in with these aliens and this kind of motley crew. I really, really loved it, but since like going back and trying to rewatch it recently, it's that old kind of box TV. I don't expect me to know aspect ratios, but it's an older style of aspect ratio, and it makes it very hard to watch with just black bars on the side, and I don't know why that bugs me so much. And then there's Sanctuary, which kind of ties back into SG-1 because it's got the actress who played Samantha Carter kind of trying to distance herself away from that role. Amanda Tapping is her name. And Sanctuary is like this, again, government agency, or like the government is aware that there are like monsters in the world, and like, you know, vampires and werewolves and all these people need a sanctuary to go where they can kind of be separated from normal people, and the sanctuary kind of acts as a facilitator. And again, there's like monsters of the week and things of that nature. Very enjoyable. But this one I haven't watched in a number of years. And that leaves The Granddaddy. And I'm gonna give this show 2 slots because it's got 2 separate eras. We've got one era where this good boy shows up. This is classic Doctor Who, K9. We've got literally, I think we're at like 60 something years of television shows with Doctor Who, and there's, can I do math? A 16-year gap between the two areas, where it debuted from 1963 to 1989, and then it came back in 2005 and has been going ever since. And so we're over 20 years since it relaunched. Actually, we're at 20 years since it relaunched. 20. I can do math. I know how math works. But I have a ton of love for Doctor Who. And they're very different shows. They have to be considered different shows. I challenge you to watch modern Doctor Who and then try and go watch classic Doctor Who. In fact, classic Doctor Who has its own eras. You've got the Jon Pertwee era, You've got the John Pertwee era, which takes place mostly on Earth. You've got the kind of fresh new Doctor Who when it's 1963, where he's more of a grandfather character. And then you've got kind of Tom Baker's era, where he kind of becomes what will become known as the Doctor. And it's just got all these different eras, and each actor brings something new and refreshing to the role, and it's fantastic. I love the classic era a lot, and I have a lot of love for the new era, but I think I prefer the classic era, unless we're talking about Matt Smith, because, you know, I've got my sonic screwdriver here, and I've done the Doctor Who book tag, like, years and years ago. Like, it's no secret that I like Doctor Who. I've got Funko Pops and all that sort of stuff from Doctor Who on my shelves. I've got, I think, the 4th Doctor's scarf down here. Like, I've got a bunch of Doctor Who stuff on, in fact, I've got that right there. I love the show so much. It's so creative. It constantly reinvents itself. It's so enjoyable. And it's had some rough patches throughout the years, but it always finds a way to surprise me and just bring joy to my life. But these are my favorite television shows, and I want you to tell me yours. But that's all I've really got for you today, guys. I hope you are doing well. Till next time, peace out. Stay magical. Bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. Thank you for supporting my passion and my hobby. It means the world to me.